Hi everyone, this is Ronnie Bincer, the Hangout Helper. We are continuing our series with Krafty cooking and using Google Plus Hangouts and Hangouts on Air involving people that are chefs doing their cooking online, which is an incredibly awesome, cool thing. And today, or this particular segment is going to be with Giselle Achecar, and she's going to tell us a little bit about how she is currently using Hangouts to do her cooking stuff. So, Giselle?
Hey Ronnie, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on this incredibly wonderful event, this crafty event.
Yes, it's
Uh,
wonderful.
so I'm the creator and CEO, as you can see from my lower third here, of Eco Rico, which is a healthy food and lifestyle show. And I do healthy food and lifestyle programming con sabor. On Google Plus, I have two HOAs that I do. One is Food Talk, and the other one is Mommy Talk, which is MAMI for parents. And we do mommies and poppies. And then I have my shows, my cooking shows. So, which you can watch on Eco Rico TV on YouTube and at our website at eco-rico.com. There you go.
There we
So
go. Okay,
lots of
so
yummy stuff. So what I normally do is I take recipes and I make them healthier. Effectively, that's what I do. I'm a trained chef, so I understand the science of food, and really that's kind of what you need to do in order to understand what ingredients you can take out at what temperature, and particularly with baking, it can be really sensitive, and understanding flours and things like that. So yeah, but it's
that
all
is,
tasty and it's got lots of sabor.
yeah, and I'm in Colorado, con sabor, with a little bit of flavor here and there, and we have to deal with altitude, so that's always a challenge when you get to baking as well.
Yeah, well, it's not all baking. I mean, I
Well,
make
just
yummy stuff.
yeah.
Uh,
So
but,
there's
yeah.
a standard list of questions we've been asking all the different chefs that we've been interviewing. So let me run through some of those, and then we'll get into some other goodies.
Okay, great.
What are the challenges that you run into when you're doing your cooking shows technologically and possibly emotionally? Are there things that you've run into that kind of throw you for a loop at times?
Well, let's separate them in two things. So when I'm doing my produced show, Eco Rico, and my cooking show, I do a lot of pre-production because it's guerrilla green. You know what I mean? I write, produce, direct, and I host the show. So I've got my crew. And inevitably something happens. It just does. So
Right.
you have to really understand where you are in order to be able to kind of roll with the punches when you're shooting. Live is a completely different animal, and that brings on its own emotional challenges. There's the technology, there's the streaming issues, and there's the time constraints. When you're shooting a produced show, you've got your B-roll, you can cut, you can pick up, and then in edits you can fix all the problems
Sure.
and find the best. But live is live, and it can get completely crazy, and it's very hairy. It's very hairy. It's a whole different set of skills. And patience and emotional fortitude, and normally it should involve some vino or some sort of alcoholic beverage while you're doing it in order to get through it.
So with the cooking shows that you do live with the Hangout tool, the Hangout on Air tool, do you involve participants in the film strip, or are you primarily doing broadcasts?
Well, so let's go back. I started doing those, I don't know, end of last spring. And to tell you the truth, it's just not my preference because you forget things. It's not like you're shooting on the fly, which is very exciting. But if you have any production issues, it affects what the food looks like. And the cameras aren't where they really need to be unless you spend 10, 20, $30,000 in order to get the type of cameras that you need to shoot live doing an HOA. I mean, I'm a television writer. The thing with food is it's what it looks like. I mean, I'm just thinking about it now, and I'm having a Pavlovian response, and my saliva's going. So, there are lots of issues. One of the things that happened was, I think you're also interviewing Larry Fernillier, who's been my mentor on Google+, and he had me on his Caribbean cooking show, and things were falling out. So I know we're going to get to that question, and we can talk about the problems of production, but you really have to have a sense of calm, and you have to roll with the punches because you were doing it at the moment. You were cooking at the moment, and you forget. I remember when I was making cheese souffles. I forgot something, and then you got to throw it back in, and you got to tell your people, okay, don't do what I just did, because this was not the right order of things. But yeah, it can get hairy.
Okay, so I'm assuming that there potentially are other people in the film strip, and if they are there with some of the cooking shows that you do, how do you work with their technological challenges, like before you get started in what a lot of us call the green room, and potentially in the middle of the show when things aren't necessarily rolling quite the way because of an emotional, they're stuck. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, what's happened to me? I'll have to use Larry again because Larry was the moderator of my show. I mean, he was, the producer effectively of what was going on. And he's in Trinidad. I'm in Los Angeles, and inevitably somebody fell out. I mean, there were 2, 3, 4 minutes of complete dead time. And when you're doing a 45 or hour-minute show, which is not, by the way, what you want to do, you can go back and fix the problem, but it's a live thing. So the problem with Hangouts in general, and particularly when you're doing something as complex as cooking live, with so many ingredients and things happening and skillets and fire, is that the quality of the stream is only as good as the lowest quality of the stream with the people in the Hangout. So for me, there were certain things that I always wanted to do. I wanted to keep the amount of people in the Hangout at a total minimum. And I wanted to be sure that if anybody was going to be in there, that they had certain minimum upload speeds, 2.0 at a minimum. I've now got my super high-speed Fusion Drive Super Boost computer, so I don't have the problems I had before, and it might be a little bit easier for me if I were to shoot again live. But I just opted to, really because of quality and because of brand considerations and all of the things about my company, the certain quality of what I put out, I just chose to kind of hold off on live cooking HOAs until digital streaming was happening and I could just really control the tech aspects of it a little bit better.
Okay, so you're moving in the realm, or you already have moved in the realm of more pre-recorded, or at least a broadcast that you can go back and edit before you're doing it, right?
No, what I've opted to do is the live programming that I'm doing with Food Talk and Mommy Talk is a sit-down interview format that is live and that is short and that translates well on YouTube. Because one of the things, just as a producer of content that you have to be aware of is consumption. Video consumption levels, and on YouTube, the shorter is better. On Google Plus, of course, everybody is hanging out for an hour at a time, and we're chatting. But it just doesn't translate as well when you want to distribute your content on a different platform, whether it's YouTube or some other platform. So these are some of the considerations that I took to heart when I had to rethink how I was going to continue doing live programming in the food space and in the parenting space.
Okay. So let me shift just to a very specific question about food and Hangouts. And
sorry, my nose is... There we go. Okay.
Specific types of food. Are there certain types that you find are going to be easier to work with when you're doing a cooking show of some type that you prefer?
Well, here's the thing. You can't really do a lot of braising and stews and soups and all of that live without having started them already. So what a lot of us have done, a lot of the people who were doing and are doing live cooking shows on Google Plus or live streaming on YouTube that is not going to be a 2-hour show is you've got to have everything prepped. Right? And as I was talking about earlier, everything is in pre-production. So life to me is pre-production, but particularly when you're going to do a live cooking show, you've got to have your mise en place. Everything has to be ready to go. And if you're doing something that normally would take a bit longer because you really ideally want to keep a live cooking show to about 30 minutes, you've got to have everything prepped, ready things that cook quicker, fish, searing. Those are the kind of techniques that you want to use in a cooking show. You're not going to be doing, like I said, braising, slow cooking. If you're going to be out on the grill, something that's quick, that is, you're going to take 4 to 8 minutes on one side and flip, and then you're cooking something else that you can do in the middle, whether you're doing a sauce or something like that. That's going to be your best bet. The things that I did were souffles. I did some gorgeous cheese souffles. I did grilled veggies, salads, panini, that type of thing. But even then, I mean, these things take time. So you come into the show with everything prepped, marinated, ready to go.
So with going with the little hashtag that we've got here called Krafty Cooking, you're
Mm-hmm.
having to be pretty crafty in the way that you present things. You're going to have to bring them in phases, right? And that's our last standard question. Is I'm assuming that you do prefer, if you're going to have multiple phases, or having multiple phases of the preparation in process, like from raw, maybe halfway, and then a finished product, so that you can keep it to that 30-minute sweet spot.
Well, again, it depends on what you're cooking. So say you're searing some duck breasts. Your duck breasts have been marinated. If you're going to serve it with a salad, everything's been washed and prepped. You've already made the salad dressing probably ahead of time. And then what you do is you talk through it, because people, you've got to remember, it's a live show, and people are normally leaving comments on the event page, or if you've got your tracker on, you're commenting live as well. I mean, the moderator's in there. If you've got multiple people in the Hangout, people are talking. It's a free-for-all. But as the chef, and with what you're doing, of course, you want to have things prepped. There are just limitations to what you can do in that format, and so you have to work within that format. If you know that you want to make something that normally would take you an hour, then you come into the show with it already cooking.
Mm-hmm.
In
So
order
in
to,
essence, you're a proponent of the idea that you need to have it in multiple stages so that you can fit it into a time slot that also seems engaging.
absolutely, and really ultimately that's a consideration. You have to always consider your audience and your viewer first, and then you tailor what it is that you're doing around that, and that's how you create your programming. Absolutely. And with food, there's so many variables and so many things can happen that you have to really, really be flexible and roll with the punches and laugh at yourself and fail in public
Mm-hmm.
and be okay with that.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks. So what we're doing is we're bringing to focus the idea that crafty cooking, or methods that you can use for doing things online with live Hangouts, is something that's still being developed. It's viable. It's an option for many people, depending on what it is they're trying to prepare, of course. And are
Yeah.
there any little tidbits you'd like to share with any of the budding chefs out there that are going to start trying this?
You mean in terms of HOA or in terms of just being a chef?
Uh, let's say in
That's
terms of
what I
being
said.
HOA. Let's do that.
I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, let's just in terms of trying to do it with an HOA.
Well, one, you have to have your mise en place. Two, everything is pre-production. You really need to be thoughtful about what it is you're cooking. And you have to be really honest with your audience. When you create your event page, there's a place there to put exactly what you're going to do. And it's all about creating the conversation and the excitement around what you're doing. But the most important thing when you're doing live cooking is to really take the time to think through your ingredients, your menu, and don't bite off more than you can chew, my friends. Do one thing. Do one dish, right?
Right.
Make it look pretty. Have them salivating while you're cooking.
Con sabor.
And con sabor, and have your vino ready, baby. Vino ready.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us and being part of our series where we've got multiple chefs talking about using Hangouts on Air and cooking and the crafty things that they can do with their crafty cooking endeavors. Thanks, Giselle.
Thank you, Ronnie. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.